Hello everybody and welcome to Crazy Data Science, the YouTube channel that solves uncommon questions using real-world data science. And today we got a really interesting question from John. Thanks John for the question. John is apparently a really big Slayer fan, and his question is, yo, Crazy Data Science dude, I absolutely love Slayer. But honestly, the songs are getting a bit weak. I mean lyric-wise. Can you guys give them some inspiration so they return to their glory days? Well, John, of course we can. But before we're gonna tackle John's problem, I think it's a really good idea to let people know what kind of band Slayer is and what kind of music they make. So for those people who have very sensitive ears, this might be the right moment to turn up the volume. So now that everyone knows who Slayer is and what kind of music they produce, I'm sorry for that by the way, we're going to go back to John's problem and looking at the challenges we are going to try to solve using data science. So what the challenge is that John wants us to help Slayer write glorious songs again, preferably through the power of data science and machine learning. So what we're going to try to do is we are going to start up with some data exploration. Look at the data, what's the best-selling album from Slayer, what were their glory days. What's always interesting when you write lyrics for songs is what is the feeling you're trying to return by the lyrics. What's the feeling you want to give people by the lyrics you've written? So we're going to do a bit of sentiment analysis through some NLP, natural language processing. And we're going to do something really awesome because John wants us to help Slayer write songs that resemble their glory days. So what we're going to do is we are going to look at something that's called a long short-term memory recurrent neural network, which is basically a neural network that can generate texts, and in this case, generate Slayer lyrics. So let's get started, shall we? So to get started with John's problem, the first thing we want to do is we want to look a bit at the data of Slayer to find out, what was their best scoring album, what was, the album that has the most popular lyrics. And to do that, we're going to start off, of course, on Wikipedia and go through the Slayer discography. And what I found out is that there is a pretty nice table here that has all the various Slayer albums, including some information about chart positions and sales and those kinds of things. So these could be very useful to start off with the data analysis. So what I basically did is I wrote an R script that can get us the information from the Wikipedia page from Slayer and just put it inside a table, so it's a bit easier for us to analyze and visualize. So I'm going to quickly load some libraries, and in this case we're going to use the library called rvest, which can scrape the Wikipedia page and show us the information in a friendly manner in R. So I'm going to set the URL. I'm gonna read the page contents, which is basically just an HTML now, and I'm gonna use a function called HTML table to get all the information for the wiki table, which is the table that has all the Slayer information, and place it inside the data frame. Now I'm gonna do some additional manipulation of the data. I'm gonna remove the first and the last rows because those aren't needed. And I'm gonna remove all the chart and certification features, those columns, because charts are for posers. If you're a metal fan, we're not interested in the chart position, so we're just gonna remove this. So if you look at our table now, and thankfully we can do that very easily, our data frame, you can see we removed some data and we got basically the information we need for an analysis to find out what's the best scoring Slayer album. We got a year, a release year, we got some album details, and as you can see, it's still on one line, so that's a bit ugly. We need to do something with that. And we got some sales here, like worldwide sales, US sales, worldwide sales, things like that. So we still have some work to do to place it inside a useful data frame. So I wrote a function that basically calculates the total sales from the sales column and adds them as an extra column to our table. So I'm going to run this script. It does this for every row. And if we look at our table now, you can see we have a total sales column that basically is just an aggregation of all the sales that were inside that column. That's great. One thing we still have is that everything's on a single line here. So we have the album title, we have another release date, and we have the label. So we want to do something about that as well. And I'm going to use a function called separate that basically takes as the input our table, our column album details, and going to split it into 3 different columns as separator the new line indicator. So let's do that. And let's look at our cleanup table. And as you can see, this is far more useful. We have a year of release, we have a column for the album title, we have a release date, and we have a label. So now we can start by answering the first question. What were Slayer's glory days? What was the best album they ever produced? The best way, we can do it from this table, but the easiest way to do it is, of course, to visualize it. So I made a small plot here. Let's see, I'm going to zoom in a bit on the plot to make it a bit easier to see. And as you can see from this plot, by far, based on album sales, the album Rain in Blood is the most popular Slayer album. So I think we can conclude that Rain in Blood is like, you know, the glory days of Slayer. So that's going to be our focus to help John answer his question, to help Slayer write better lyrics. So now we know that it's Rain in Blood. Let's do some more analysis, okay? So let's explore the songs a bit. So what I did here is basically I got all the lyrics from every song that's on Rain in Blood, and put them into a text file. Let's see. For instance, Epidemic. I've put them into a text file, and I'm going to load them into R inside the data frame. So we have all the lyrics inside R so we can look at them. This is basically the command to import them one by one. I'm a bit lazy, so I'm basically gonna load an R data file that already has all the song lyrics in it. So if we look at them, you can see I've imported all the songs together with the title of the song, and every line is a line of one of those songs and what album it corresponds to. So we can do some stuff with this, but to prepare it for a bit of sentiment analysis, because we are interested in what is the feeling we are trying to give listeners. So we know, you know, if we generate lyrics, does those match the feeling of the album? We have to do a couple of things to prepare the text for natural language processing. So first of all, I'm going to unnest everything, which basically means we're going to split every word from every sentence. So we only get the words back. So let's do that. If we look at our data frame now, you can see we have the album title, and we have, like, you know, all the different words there. We're going to remove the stop words, and these are words like the, me, I. You know, those words don't really make a lot of sense in our sentiment analysis, so I'm going to remove them. I'm going to return every word as long as it occurs more than 2 times, because else it would be a bit difficult to read the graph. So I'm going to create another ggplot graph. And let's look at some of the words. All right, so apparently the word death is very popular in songs of Slayer on the Rain in Blood album. So when we're gonna generate new lyrics, I think the word death should absolutely be in there. On the other hand, the word life is pretty popular as well. You can see some other words that are relatively popular, like die, but apparently only in the song Angel of Death. Blood is pretty popular. So we get an idea about, okay, what are some popular words there? So this is interesting. So we know death is popular. We should include death in our lyric generator. Let's look at some of the sentiments with the words that are inside the songs. So First of all, we're going to find out, can we see a positive or a negative sentiment based on the words? So I'm going to run a command here. Whoa, sorry. And I'm going to, again, place the sentiment analysis in a graph because, it's easy to understand. And what I'm going to return here is basically the most popular positive and negative sentiment words based on the entire Rain in Blood album. So let's see. Zoom in again. And as you can see, the most negative word, or at least that has the biggest contribution to the sentiment negative, is the word death. Die is on the second place. But as you can see, there are also quite a lot of positive labeled words like angel, praise, respect. So apparently Slayer isn't all negativity. They have some positive sides as well. So let's see how we can see it, how to visualize it for every song, because maybe some songs are a bit more positive than other songs, right? So let's look. Again, we're gonna do this using a graph. So I'm gonna do a sentiment analysis and basically range every song based on their sentiment, how positive and how negative the song goes. That's basically what we're gonna see. All right, zoom in again. So what you can see here is that, the song Angel of Death is like a roller coaster of emotions. It goes from relatively positive to very, very negative. On the other hand, a song like Criminally Insane is almost a happy song. So this is interesting to know. You see that this tells me that basically if we want to generate some lyrics, we should add a bit of positive words to it and a lot of negative words, because that's gonna score. So what we found out using this analysis is, Rain in Blood is the most best-selling Slayer album, so that has to be their glory days. Slayer isn't an all-negative band. They have some positive lyrics in their songs as well. So using this information, we can get started on the last step of this crazy data science challenge and look at how we are going to generate a recurrent neural network that can help us generate lyrics for Slayer based on the Rain in Blood album. So to create a recurrent neural network, I've created a Jupyter notebook with Python that uses Keras and NumPy and TensorFlow to generate a recurrent neural network. So we're gonna step through this code a bit and see if we can actually generate Slayer lyrics. So let's run this. I'm just gonna import a number of libraries we are required to build a neural network. And this is our function. And what we're going to do with this generate function is basically we're going to give it our recurrent neural network model, and we're going to give it a seed, and we're going to tell how much words it needs to return. And what that will do is it will ask the model to generate different words that would make up a sentence inside one of, or could possibly make up a sentence inside one of Slayer's lyrics. So we're gonna run this, and here we're going to look at the input file, because we know Rain in Blood as an album was Slayer's best ever album, based on sales. So those were their glory days. So we're gonna use the text files, the lyrics of that album, as input for our recurrent neural network. So what I did is I have a text file here with all the lyrics of every song on the album. We're going to use that as input, and just like we did at the natural language processing, we are going to split up every sentence into words, and we're going to use that as input, and we're going to place it inside a sequence. And that's what the recurrent neural network needs. It kind of needs to translate the word to a number so it's usable for the recurrent neural network. So let's load in the file and place it into sequences. And here we're going to define our long short-term memory recurrent neural network. We're not going into too much depth here. You can try out the demos yourself and play around with it. This is some information about the layout of the neural network, and what you can see here is this is the long short-term memory layer. And the real power of the recurrent neural network is that it can basically go back into the neural network with the data it has generated, so it can make multiple round trips through the neural network model. So that's why it's really powerful. And in this case, it can generate a word, go back through the recurrent neural network and find out, okay, what are other words that would make sense to combine with this word based on the lyrics in Rain in Blood. So I'm gonna compile the model and I'm going to train the model. So this is gonna take a little bit for it to train, and there we go. All right. So now that our recurrent neural network is trained, let's call our function and see if we can generate some Slayer lyrics. So what we're doing here, remember, we need to paste in some parameters to the function. I told it, okay, here is the model we just trained, and I want you to generate a sentence based on the word death. And we know the word death is very popular on the album Rain in Blood. It's actually the most frequently used word on the entire album. And basically I tell it I want it to return a sentence of 6 words. So let's see what happens. Death, monarch to die, angel of death. That already sounds pretty metal to me. Let's try some more words and some longer sentences. For instance, let's try the word hell. So I wanted to generate a sentence of 12 words based on the word hell. Hell, flesh, till there's no tomorrow. Make you will be reborn, no tomorrow. This is perhaps a bit of a strange running sentence, but hey, it's metal, so everything goes. Let's try another one, insane. Insane, locked away, test of death, monarch to die, angel of death, monarch. Yeah, there are some words in there that make sense, and what would be a kind of logical sentence. On the other hand, if you were to use this on your album, I'm not really sure if that's gonna work. But as I told you, the more training you put in inside the model, the better the words are going to be and the sentences are going to be grammatically. So, all right. We did some text classification, we looked at some emotions of the song, we found out that the album Rain in Blood is by far the best-selling Slayer album ever, and we used the lyrics of that album to feed it inside a so-called recurrent neural network. Whoever came up with that name, you know, man, that's way too long, don't do that. To generate lyrics based on the song text that were on that album. We discovered, you know, the lyrics, some sentences were a bit strange, but I honestly believe if you put more effort into it, more training, it would actually generate some sentences that would make sense. So from my perspective, I absolutely think this solution can be used to generate new song lyrics or generate basically whatever text you're interested in. So I'm gonna call this challenge plausible. All right, now that we've looked at John's challenge and created a solution that is plausible enough, I want to thank you for watching this video. If you ever run into a challenge yourself, please leave a message in the comments, and who knows, we might take a look at your challenge and try to solve it using data science. For all the code you've seen during this video and all additional other resources, they are in the description of the video itself. And if you want to stay up to date with all the crazy data science news, follow this channel or follow us on Twitter using the links in the description. Thank you.